I did, yes. Purely because there was so much attention on me when I first arrived on the scene, and I wanted to get my act together, so to speak. And I had so many people watching me, and the pressure was enormous. But as years go on, it gets better. But you're still learning all the time.
A DNA test just exposed Princess Diana's darkest secret, and when Camilla found out, she literally collapsed. The royal family is in total panic mode right now. What they discovered doesn't just rewrite history, it destroys everything they've been hiding for decades. Diana knew this truth all along, and they silenced her for it. Now the evidence is undeniable. The palace can't cover it up anymore, and the entire world is about to find out what really happened. You won't believe what they've been keeping from us.
I can't mimic voices for love or money. I'm completely hopeless at it. I was a really bad actor at school, and I've never been able to master the art of mimicry. But my husband, he does it brilliantly. He can do all the voices.
The story of Princess Diana's death remains one of the most discussed events in modern history. On August 31st, 1997, the world woke up to news that seemed almost impossible to believe. Diana, Princess of Wales, had been killed in a car accident in Paris. The crash occurred in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, a road that runs alongside the River Seine in the heart of the French capital. 2 other people died that night as well. The driver, Henri Paul, and Diana's companion, Dodi, Foyd, were both pronounced dead at the scene. Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, was the only survivor. The news spread quickly across every continent. Television networks interrupted their regular programming to announce what had happened. Newspapers prepared special editions. Within hours, millions of people around the world were trying to process the loss of someone who had become far more than just a member of the British royal family. Diana had connected with ordinary people in a way that few public figures ever managed to do. She visited hospitals, spoke openly about mental health, campaigned against landmines, and showed genuine warmth to everyone she met. Her ability to relate to people from all walks of life had earned her the nickname the People's Princess, and her sudden death left a void that many felt personally. In the days and weeks that followed, the public reaction was extraordinary. Thousands of people gathered outside Kensington Palace, Diana's London residence, leaving flowers, cards, and personal messages. The pile of tributes grew so large that it stretched across the palace gates and down the surrounding streets. People queued for hours to sign books of condolence. Television coverage continued almost non-stop, with commentators struggling to put into words what the loss meant. The funeral, held on September 6, 1997, was watched by an estimated 2.5 billion people worldwide. It was one of the most watched broadcasts in television history. But alongside the grief, questions began to emerge almost immediately. Many people found it difficult to accept that someone as carefully protected as Princess Diana could die in what appeared to be a straightforward car accident. The circumstances seemed too sudden, too random, and too tragic for a woman who had survived so much public scrutiny and personal hardship. As more details about the crash became public, the questions only multiplied. Why was the car traveling at such high speed? What role did Avgards, the photographers, play? Were there other factors involved that the public wasn't being told about? French authorities were the first to respond. They launched a judicial investigation right away, treating the incident as a serious matter that required thorough examination. The investigation was led by Judge Hervé Stéphan, who began his work in 1999 and spent considerable time reviewing all available evidence. His team looked at photographs from the scene, examined the wrecked Mercedes, and interviewed witnesses who had been near the tunnel that night. They also conducted toxicology tests on Henri Paul, the security officer from the Ritz Hotel who had been driving the car when it crashed. The findings from Judge Stéphan's investigation were released after months of detailed work. According to the official report, the crash had been caused by Henri Paul driving at excessive speed while under the influence of alcohol. Tests showed that his blood alcohol level was significantly above the legal limit in France. The investigation also noted that Paul had been taking prescription medication that should not have been mixed with alcohol. These factors, combined with the high speed at which he was driving, were identified as the direct causes of the crash. The report concluded that there was no evidence of foul play, no sign that another vehicle had forced them off the road, and no indication that the car had been tampered with in any way. For many people, this explanation felt too simple. It suggested that one of the most famous women in the world had died because of one man's poor judgment on a single night. The official conclusion was that the tragedy resulted from human error and nothing more. While some accepted this finding and tried to move forward, a significant portion of the public remained unconvinced. They pointed to various details that seemed inconsistent or unexplained. Some witnesses claimed they had seen bright flashes of light just before the crash, leading to speculation that photographers had blinded the driver. Others reported seeing a white Fiat Uno near the tunnel entrance, a car that was never conclusively identified. The paparazzi who had been following Diana's car that night became a major focus of public anger. Photographers had chased her throughout her life, and many people believed they bore responsibility for creating the dangerous situation that led to the crash. Several photographers were questioned by French police, and some were briefly detained. However, the investigation ultimately concluded that while the photographers' pursuit may have contributed to the pressure on Henri Paul to drive faster, they had not directly caused the collision. The car had crashed into a concrete pillar in the tunnel, and the physical evidence suggested that excessive speed and the driver's impairment were the primary factors. Despite these official findings, conspiracy theories began to spread rapidly. Some people suggested that Diana had become too independent and too outspoken for certain powerful institutions to tolerate. Her humanitarian work had taken her to places like Angola and Bosnia, where she drew attention to the devastating effects of landmines. She had also spoken candidly about her struggles within the royal family, most notably in a 1995 interview with the BBC, where she discussed her marriage to Prince Charles and the difficulties she had faced. Her willingness to challenge expectations and speak her truth had made her beloved by millions, but it also led some to believe she had made enemies in high places. Another major source of speculation centered on Diana's relationship with Dodi Fayed. The two had been spending time together during the summer of 1997, and their relationship was the subject of intense media interest. Some theories suggested that certain members of the establishment were uncomfortable with Diana's involvement with Fayed, who came from an Egyptian background and whose father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, was a prominent businessman. Mohammed Al-Fayed himself became one of the most vocal critics of the official investigation, repeatedly claiming that his son and Diana had been murdered. He spent years pushing for further inquiries and challenging the conclusions that had been reached. The persistence of these questions and theories created significant pressure on British authorities. While the French investigation had technically closed the case, public opinion in the United Kingdom demanded more answers. The sense that something was being hidden or overlooked would not go away, no matter how many times officials insisted the crash had been an accident. This ongoing doubt would eventually lead to new investigations, more extensive inquiries, and years of continued examination into what really happened that night in Paris. The French investigation may have provided official answers, but it did not bring closure to everyone who had followed Princess Diana's story. In Britain, especially, the doubts continued to grow stronger rather than fade away. People from all backgrounds, not just conspiracy theorists, felt that the explanation they had been given was incomplete. The questions kept circulating in newspapers, television programs, and everyday conversations. Why had the car been traveling so fast? Were there really no other vehicles involved? Could Diana's death truly have been just a terrible accident with no deeper cause? The uncertainty became so widespread that British authorities realized they could no longer ignore it. In 2004, a major new investigation was announced. It was called Operation Pageant, and it would become one of the most comprehensive inquiries ever conducted in British law enforcement history. The investigation was led by Lord Stevens, who was then the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. Lord Stevens had a reputation for thoroughness and integrity, and his appointment was meant to signal that this inquiry would leave no stone unturned. The goal was clear: to examine every conspiracy theory, every rumour, and every claim that had emerged since Diana's death, and to determine once and for all whether there was any truth to them. Operation Pageant was not a small undertaking. It involved a large team of investigators who spent 3 years examining evidence, travelling to Paris to visit the crash site, and interviewing hundreds of witnesses. The team looked into numerous specific claims that had circulated over the years. One theory suggested that Diana had been pregnant at the time of her death, which some believed would have given certain people a motive to harm her. Investigators reviewed medical records and testimony to address this claim. Another theory claimed that the Mercedes had been tampered with before the journey, possibly having its brakes or steering compromised. The investigation team examined the vehicle wreckage in detail and consulted with automotive experts. One of the most persistent theories involved a bright flash of light that some witnesses reported seeing just before the crash. According to this claim, the flash had been deliberately created to blind Henri Paul and cause him to lose control of the car. Operation Pageant looked carefully at this possibility, reviewing eyewitness accounts and analysing whether such a flash could have occurred. Investigators also explored claims about mysterious vehicles that had allegedly been following Diana's car, including the white Fiat Uno that several witnesses mentioned, but which was never definitively located. The investigation also examined letters that Diana had allegedly written expressing fear for her safety. One letter in particular had gained attention because in it, Diana reportedly mentioned concerns that someone might try to cause her harm through a car accident. The existence of such letters raised obvious questions about whether she had sensed danger before that night in Paris. Operation Pageant reviewed these documents and the context in which they were written, trying to determine whether they represented genuine fears or simply reflected the anxiety and stress Diana had been experiencing during a difficult period of her life. After 3 years of intensive work, Operation Pageant released its findings in December 2006. The report was extensive, running to more than 800 pages, and it addressed virtually every conspiracy theory that had gained any traction. The conclusion, however, was remarkably similar to what the French investigation had found years earlier. According to Lord Stevens and his team, there was no evidence of a conspiracy to kill Princess Diana. The crash had been caused by the grossly negligent driving of Henri Paul, who had been significantly over the legal alcohol limit and was driving at dangerous speed. The report also noted that the pursuing paparazzi had contributed to the dangerous situation by creating pressure and chaos around the car. The investigation found no credible evidence that Diana had been pregnant. Medical records and testimony confirmed this clearly. There was no proof that the car had been tampered with in any way. The vehicle's mechanical systems, including the brakes and steering, had been examined thoroughly and were found to be functioning properly at the time of the crash. As for the flash of light theory, the investigation concluded that while some witnesses reported seeing flashes, these were most likely from cameras belonging to the paparazzi, rather than any deliberate attempt to blind the driver. The white Fiat Uno remained unexplained, but investigators found no evidence linking it to any conspiracy or suggesting it had intentionally caused the crash. For some people, the Operation Pageant report brought a sense of relief. It had been thorough, expensive, and transparent, addressing nearly every concern that had been raised. Yet for many others, even this exhaustive investigation was not enough. The findings might have been based on careful analysis, but they still described Diana's death as essentially an accident, and that remained difficult for people to accept. The public's emotional connection to Diana was so strong that the idea of her dying in such an ordinary way felt almost offensive. A woman who had touched millions of lives deserved, in many people's minds, an explanation that matched the scale of the loss. The conversation did not end with Operation Pageant. In 2007, the British judicial system took the additional step of launching a formal inquest into the deaths of Diana and Dodi Fayed. This inquest was different from the police investigation because it was held in public and involved a jury made up of ordinary citizens. The process was overseen by a coroner, and it gave people a chance to see and hear the evidence for themselves. Lawyers representing different parties, including Mohammed Al-Fayed, questioned witnesses and presented arguments. Experts testified about the crash, the injuries sustained, and the events leading up to that night. The inquest lasted for months, from October 2007 to April 2008. It was an emotionally charged process with dramatic testimony and intense media coverage. The jury heard from emergency responders who had been at the scene, from doctors who had treated Diana in the hospital, from investigators who had examined the evidence, and from people who had known Diana personally. Every detail was scrutinized publicly, and the entire proceeding was documented in transcripts that ran to thousands of pages. When the jury finally reached its verdict in April 2008, it delivered a finding of unlawful killing. This term meant that Diana and Dodi had died as a result of gross negligence by others. Specifically, the jury placed responsibility on Henri Paul for his reckless and intoxicated driving, and on the paparazzi whose pursuit had created the dangerous circumstances. The verdict acknowledged that multiple factors had combined to cause the tragedy. It also noted one crucial detail that many experts had emphasized throughout the proceedings. Neither Diana nor Dodi had been wearing seatbelts at the time of the crash. This detail about the seatbelts became a painful focal point. Medical experts who testified at the inquest explained that if Diana and Dodi had been wearing seatbelts, their chances of survival would have been significantly higher. The bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, who was the only survivor, had been wearing his seatbelt, and doctors believed this was a major factor in why he lived while the others did not. It was a tragic reminder of how a simple safety measure, something so basic and ordinary, can make the difference between life and death. Despite the thoroughness of the inquest and the jury's verdict, the conclusion once again confirmed that there was no evidence of royal involvement or government conspiracy. The deaths were the result of dangerous driving, poor judgment, and tragic circumstances. No secret plot had been uncovered. No hidden evidence had emerged to support the theories about deliberate harm. For the second time, after years of investigation and public examination, the official finding pointed to the same explanation: a terrible accident caused by human failings. Yet even this did not fully satisfy everyone. The theories persisted in certain circles, and new variations occasionally appeared. Some people focused on alleged failures in the emergency response, wondering if Diana could have been saved if she had received different treatment. Others continued to believe that important evidence had been overlooked or suppressed. The emotional weight of Diana's death and the public's deep affection for her meant that for some, no official explanation would ever feel adequate. While investigations into the crash eventually provided extensive documentation and official conclusions, another story about Princess Diana continued to circulate in tabloids and gossip columns for years. This rumor was more personal than theories about the accident. It questioned the identity of Prince Harry's biological father and became one of the most persistent pieces of speculation surrounding Diana's private life. The claim suggested that Harry was not the son of Prince Charles, but rather of James Hewitt, a former British Army officer who had an affair with Diana during her marriage. This story appeared regularly in newspapers, was discussed on television programs, and spread widely through conversations and later through internet forums. It seemed to have staying power despite the fact that anyone who looked carefully at the timeline of events could see that the claim made no sense. Yet the rumor persisted, partly because it involved romance, scandal, and the royal family, a combination that guaranteed public interest. It also persisted because people were genuinely curious about Diana's personal life and the difficulties she had faced within her marriage to Charles. Prince Harry was born on September 15, 1984, at St Mary's Hospital in London. His full name is Henry Charles Albert David, and his birth was publicly announced and celebrated. The official birth certificate lists Charles and Diana as his parents, and at the time there was no controversy or speculation about his parentage whatsoever. The media coverage of his birth was entirely positive, focusing on the arrival of another royal heir and on how the young Prince William now had a little brother. Both Charles and Diana were still fulfilling their public duties as a couple, and although their marriage was already experiencing private strain, this was not yet widely known to the public. The man at the centre of the paternity rumour, James Hewitt, did not meet Princess Diana until 1986. This is a documented fact that has been confirmed by multiple sources, including Hewitt himself. Their meeting occurred nearly 2 full years after Harry was born. By the time Diana and Hewitt were introduced, Harry was already a toddler who was walking and talking. Early photographs of Harry show a child who clearly resembles both of his parents, and particularly his father. The physical similarities between Harry and Charles are evident in their facial features, expressions, and mannerisms. Diana's relationship with James Hewitt developed during a particularly difficult period in her life. By the mid-1980s, her marriage to Charles was becoming increasingly strained. Charles had maintained a relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, something that caused Diana considerable pain. She felt isolated within the royal family and emotionally neglected in her marriage. During this vulnerable time, Diana met Hewitt, who was a cavalry officer in the Household Cavalry. He provided her with attention, companionship, and emotional support when she felt alone. Their friendship gradually became romantic, and the relationship lasted from approximately 1986 until 1991. Diana herself spoke about this period in her life during her famous 1995 interview with Martin Bashir on the BBC programme Panorama. In that interview, she acknowledged the affair and spoke candidly about how lonely she had been. Her honesty about her struggles resonated with many people who saw her as someone willing to be truthful about her feelings, even when it meant admitting to behavior that others might judge. However, the important fact remains that this relationship began well after Harry's birth, making it impossible for Hewitt to be his biological father. James Hewitt himself addressed the paternity question many times over the years, often expressing frustration at how persistent the rumor had become. In a 2002 interview, he stated clearly that there was no possibility whatsoever that he could be Harry's father. He pointed out that Harry was already walking by the time his relationship with Diana began, and he emphasized that the timeline made the claim impossible. His denials were consistent and matched every verified fact about when he and Diana met and when their relationship developed. Despite these repeated clarifications, the story continued to appear in various publications. The rumor's endurance had more to do with public fascination than with any actual evidence. The tabloid press during the 1990s was relentless in its coverage of the royal family, and Diana in particular was followed constantly. When details of her affair with Hewitt became public knowledge, some tabloids seized the opportunity to create a connection between him and Harry. They pointed to superficial similarities, particularly the fact that both Hewitt and Harry have red hair. This physical characteristic became the main basis for the speculation, with some publications running side-by-side photographs highlighting the similar hair color. However, this comparison ignored several important facts. Prince Charles himself had reddish hair when he was younger, something that can be seen in photographs from his childhood and youth. Additionally, Diana's family, the Spencers, have a strong genetic history of red hair. Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, and her sisters both have reddish tones in their hair. The red hair that Harry inherited is entirely consistent with the genetics on both sides of his family, making it nothing more than a natural family trait rather than evidence of different paternity. As the years passed, both Diana and James Hewitt moved on with their lives separately. Diana continued her humanitarian work and became even more beloved by the public for her compassion and dedication to various causes. Hewitt gradually faded from public view, though he occasionally gave interviews in which he was inevitably asked about the paternity rumor. Each time he repeated the same answer, explaining that the claim was false and that it caused pain both to him and to Diana's memory. He expressed regret that the story had taken on such a life of its own, despite having no basis in fact. The persistence of conspiracy theories surrounding the royal family is not unusual. There is something about royalty that encourages speculation, partly because their lives seem both fascinating and mysterious to outsiders. When rumors involve scandal or secrets, they tend to gain traction regardless of whether evidence supports them. The paternity rumor about Harry fit this pattern perfectly. It suggested hidden drama within the royal family and implied that the public had been misled about something important. These elements made it compelling to people who enjoyed royal gossip, even though the facts clearly contradicted it. In 2023, Prince Harry himself directly addressed the rumor in his memoir titled Spare. In the book, he described the paternity speculation as absurd and hurtful. He explained that his mother had not met James Hewitt until long after he was born, and he confirmed what had been documented all along. The timeline made the claim impossible. Harry also discussed how the rumor had followed him throughout his life, causing unnecessary pain, not just for himself, but also damaging his mother's memory. His statement was clear and aligned completely with the established historical record, leaving no ambiguity about his parentage. Harry's decision to address the rumor directly in his memoir reflected a broader frustration with how the media had treated his mother and continued to treat his family. For him, the false paternity claim was more than just an annoying piece of gossip. It represented the invasive and often cruel nature of public curiosity about his family. The fact that a lie had been repeated so many times that it had almost become accepted as folklore bothered him deeply, especially since it disrespected his mother's memory and the truth of his own identity. Another claim that occasionally surfaces alongside the paternity myth involves an alleged secret daughter named Sarah, supposedly born to Charles and Diana before William and Harry. This idea appears in certain tabloid articles and online discussions, but it has absolutely no basis in reality. There is no birth certificate, no official record, no credible witness, and no verifiable documentation to support such a claim. Every historian, royal correspondent, and biographer who has studied Diana's life extensively has confirmed that she had two children, Prince William and Prince Harry. Any suggestion of a secret daughter is entirely fictional and has been thoroughly debunked by people with access to actual royal records. By the early 2000s, as more accurate information about timelines became widely available, the rumor linking Hewitt to Harry began to lose some of its strength. Biographies of Diana that were published after her death included detailed chronologies of her life, making it easier for people to verify when various events occurred. Documentaries and interviews with people who had known Diana personally also helped establish the facts more clearly. Even journalists who had initially entertained the paternity speculation began to acknowledge publicly that the dates simply did not support the claim. Despite this progress toward truth, the rumor never completely disappeared. It occasionally resurfaced during major royal events, such as Harry's wedding to Meghan Markle, or during discussions of his military service. The repetition of misinformation, even when it has been thoroughly disproven, shows how difficult it can be to correct false narratives once they have taken hold in popular culture. Stories that seem dramatic or that suggest hidden secrets naturally attract attention, especially when they involve famous people. As the paternity speculation gradually faded in the face of overwhelming factual evidence, attention began to shift toward a different aspect of Princess Diana's background. This part of her story was not built on scandal or rumor, but on genuine historical research and scientific verification. It involved a discovery about Diana's family, heritage that connected her, and consequently her sons Prince William and Prince Harry, to a distant but verifiable piece of Indian ancestry. Unlike the previous claims that had circulated about Diana's life, this one was supported by documented genealogical records and genetic testing. The story begins several generations before Diana was born, with a woman named Eliza Keogh, who lived in the city of Surat, India during the late 18th century. Surat was an important port city at that time, serving as a major centre for trade under the operations of the British East India Company. The company had established a significant presence in India, and many British merchants, officers, and administrators worked there for extended periods. Among them was a Scottish merchant named Theodore Forbes, who was employed by the East India Company and stationed in Surat during his career. Historical records indicate that Eliza Keogh worked in the household of Theodore Forbes. The exact nature of their relationship is not entirely clear from the documents that survive from that era, but what is known is that they had a child together. Their daughter was named Catherine Scott Forbes, and she became the crucial genealogical link that would eventually connect Eliza Keogh's Indian heritage to the British Spencer family. Through Catherine and her descendants, this lineage quietly continued through several generations, eventually reaching Princess Diana herself. The genealogical connection means that Eliza Keogh was Diana's fifth great-grandmother. This places her many generations back in Diana's family tree, but the connection is direct and traceable through maternal lines. Because of this ancestry, both Prince William and Prince Harry inherited a small but genuine genetic link to India. For years, family historians and genealogists who studied the Spencer family tree had noted records suggesting that Eliza Keogh was of Indian origin, but without genetic evidence, the claim remained something of a family tradition rather than a proven fact. The situation changed significantly in 2013 when scientists decided to conduct DNA testing to verify whether the family's Indian heritage was real. The test was performed on two of Diana's distant maternal relatives, individuals who shared the same maternal ancestry through the line that descended from Eliza Keogh. The purpose was straightforward: to determine whether genetic evidence could confirm what the genealogical records suggested. The scientists were specifically looking for markers in mitochondrial DNA, which is genetic material passed down exclusively through the maternal line from mother to child. When the DNA test results were analysed, they revealed something remarkable. The samples contained a rare mitochondrial DNA haplogroup called R30b. This particular haplogroup is found almost exclusively in populations from South Asia, particularly in regions that are now part of India and Nepal. The presence of this genetic marker was significant because it does not appear commonly in European populations. Finding it in descendants of the Spencer family provided concrete biological proof that Eliza Keogh had indeed been of the Indian origin, exactly as the historical records suggested. Mitochondrial DNA is particularly useful for tracing maternal ancestry, because it passes from mother to daughter without mixing with the father's genetic material. This means that the R30b haplogroup found in Diana's maternal relatives came directly through the female line from Eliza Kewark herself, travelling unchanged through Catherine Scott Forbes and then through subsequent generations until it reached Diana. Because Diana passed this mitochondrial DNA to both of her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry also carry this genetic marker, connecting them directly to their Indian ancestor from more than 2 centuries ago. The confirmation of Diana's Indian heritage was not based on speculation or rumour. It came from legitimate genetic research conducted by professional scientists using established methods. The findings were reported by genealogical experts and covered in the British press, providing the public with clear evidence of this unexpected connection. For many people, the revelation added an interesting dimension to Diana's story. It showed that even within one of Britain's most prominent aristocratic families, there existed connections to distant parts of the world that most people had never suspected. The historical context surrounding Eliza Kewark's life helps explain how such a connection came to exist. During the period when Theodore Forbes was working in Surat, relationships between British men and Indian women were not uncommon, though they were rarely documented in detail or acknowledged openly in official records. The social dynamics of colonial India were complex, and unions between British company employees and local women occurred regularly, though the children from these relationships often faced challenges regarding their social status and recognition. When Catherine Scott Forbes was born, she was of mixed heritage, though the extent to which this was acknowledged or discussed in her lifetime is unclear. What is known is that she eventually married into a family whose descendants would become part of the Spencer lineage. The Spencer family has deep roots in British aristocracy, with connections to various noble houses throughout English history. The fact that this family line also contained a connection to India demonstrates how interconnected human history actually is, even in families that might seem purely British on the surface. Early records from the period often described Eliza Kewark using terms that were typical of British colonial language at the time. She was sometimes referred to as an Indian woman or as a housekeeper of foreign origin. These descriptions, while limited and shaped by the perspectives of that era, nevertheless confirm that British officials and record keepers of the time recognized her Indian background. Modern historians have worked to piece together more complete pictures of individuals like Eliza by combining these historical documents with other sources and, in this case, with genetic evidence. The Spencer family archives and independent genealogical databases have been essential in confirming the connection between Eliza Kewark and Princess Diana. Researchers traced the lineage carefully through each generation, documenting marriages, births, and family relationships. Catherine Scott Forbes married into a family that eventually led to Frances Shand Kidd, who was Diana's mother. This direct maternal line from Eliza through Catherine and down through the generations to Frances and then to Diana completes the chain of ancestry that the DNA testing confirmed. The revelation of Diana's Indian heritage provided new context for understanding how families and cultures became connected during the era of British colonialism and trade expansion. The East India Company's activities in India lasted for more than 2 centuries and involved thousands of British individuals living and working in Indian cities. Many relationships formed during this time, though relatively few were documented as clearly as the relationship between Theodore Forbes and Eliza Kewark. The fact that this particular connection survived in family records and could be verified through modern science makes it a valuable example of how historical and genetic research can work together. The discovery also highlighted how global human connections have existed for far longer than many people realize. The notion that families and populations remain separate and distinct is contradicted by countless examples of intermarriage, migration, and cultural exchange throughout history. In Diana's case, her connection to India through Eliza Kewark shows that even within the British aristocracy, lineages included individuals from different parts of the world. This does not change anything about Diana's status or her role in British history, but it does add depth to our understanding of her family background. For Prince William and Prince Harry, the confirmation of their Indian ancestry through DNA testing means they carry a genetic link to South Asia, however distant. This connection exists alongside their British royal heritage and their other family lines. The discovery was met with interest rather than controversy, partly because it was presented as a matter of historical and scientific fact, rather than as speculation or gossip. Unlike the false rumors about Harry's paternity, this finding was based on verifiable evidence that could be examined and confirmed by independent researchers. The story of Eliza Keogh and her descendants serves as a reminder that family histories are often more complex and far-reaching than they initially appear. Genealogical research combined with modern genetic testing has opened up new possibilities for understanding how people are connected across time and geography. In Diana's case, what began as notes in family archives and historical records became confirmed fact through the presence of a specific genetic marker found in her maternal relatives. This combination of traditional historical research and cutting-edge science provided a clear answer to a question that had existed in family knowledge for generations. The revelation about Diana's Indian heritage stands in sharp contrast to the various unfounded rumors that have surrounded her life and death. While conspiracy theories and false paternity claims were based on speculation and misunderstanding, the discovery of her connection to Eliza Keogh was supported by both documentary evidence and genetic proof. It represents the kind of genuine historical discovery that adds to our knowledge rather than creating confusion or controversy. For those interested in Diana's legacy, it offers one more dimension to understanding who she was and where she came from, connecting her story to a broader narrative of global history and human connection.